Did they have trains in China?
Rex is in my class for the second time, so I knew him last year, and I know that he is interested in building.
Look at all my... Here's your train tracks. It's a Great Wall of China. I noted that if you had a telescope in space, you can see an Earth. It's like chicken.
It was interesting to me that they built the Great Wall of China because I never heard them talk about that before.
Trying to make this steady.
But that's one thing, this thing that the Blocks is great for, is that these ideas come up and take hold and catch, and kids can pursue them.
How do you know about the Great Wall of China? Where did you hear about it?
I heard about it in the book. Look, this is food. Oh, just be quiet. Bang! I beat you. It's a giant magnet.
There's a lot of science that happens in Blocks, going to things like ramps and experimental things like that, but also balance. A lot of balance that happens, and then the mathematical connection. Kids are figuring out how to balance and, finding a middle of a block or finding a balance point.
I've got it.
And also finding equivalencies. So one of these long blocks equals two of these, or one long block is two short blocks.
You need to make the thing that holds it up a little stronger.
The blocks we use are blocks that were developed to have mathematical relationships. So those things are implicitly synthesized by the children as they work with the blocks. They begin to notice how they're related, even if it's not explicitly stated, but it is explicitly stated by the teachers with the kids as they talk about the blocks.
Next, I got into my rocket.
The overall use is for kids to build and create things from their imagination, but also from their experience in the world. Kids get to bring these ideas of the real world to life with a material that is, to some degree fixed, but also versatile enough to allow them to build all of those things. Get your journal, please. Get to work.
I'm drawing the Great Wall of China.
And then there are, other extensions like writing about their work, which I asked them to do today. I call it recording. Record some of their activities and some of what they thought about in a journal.
Where's the Great Wall of China? Right there. They have them recorded.
If I just met Rex today, I wouldn't know that this was a good material for him. And if this were a different kind of classroom in a different kind of school, there might not be blocks, and so who would even know that blocks was a really good way for Rex to bring those things forth.
In several classrooms, we had studies of marble shoots going on, so that in the K1 class, they might go down to the 5th, 6th grade and work with those kids on a marble shoot, or K1s might have figured something out that the 5th, 6th graders wanted to learn, so they would go down there. Sometimes the studies become contagious.
Look, I made it bigger so I can go faster.
It's about purposeful engagement. A lot of people think that play is downtime, and it's not.
Can you give me mine?
And I go in and out of classrooms, I'm seeing kids who are really engaged in stuff.
Wait, maybe that might work. One, two, three. Go!
I don't see this. I don't don't see kids looking out the windows because they're engaged.
Oh, it's hurt! Oh, pencil! It made it! Yeah!
Let's have the block share first. Find a spot around the block area that you can see.
But I want to hear about from Cameron Shaw about his building.
Okay, let's see. At first, I used these blocks to make it turn, but it didn't work. It kept crashing into it, and the marble kept jumping over it. So I used So I used this to help it turn, and so it can stop. So the marble can stop jumping over.
I was wondering why you made this wall.
You can see sometimes when I roll the marble, I'll roll over here and fall back down.
Or it might
That wasn't a picture of my design, but I like it. How do you make the marbles go up the ramp? They just hit the ramp and bounce backwards.
The ramp makes it go like this, so it makes it turn.
So let's demonstrate. Demonstrate. Here we go. That's all. Go.
Oh my!
When I'm negotiating with somebody and pretend, I'm doing make-believe, but I'm also learning how to take who I am and join with who she is and come to a new understanding about how we can be together.
I got my ship! Look at my ship! It looks like an alien ship, right? Let's get on it, my guy! This is... No, this is... No, I'm that's mine! That's mine! No,
Once they get to school, it's a very important social activity that is grown through working with somebody on a structure and negotiating difference and negotiating ideas.
Yes! You said Ben! No! Ben! Get out! Okay.
It was okay when you were using your words. But when it's okay when you're using your words, because he needs to hear your words. But your hands, so then you wait until he's done, and then you tell him how you feel, because that's okay to do.
Ben, you said Texas was you. No, I think he's out there.
Okay, Drew, but I need you to turn around. Drew, stand up, turn around, and look at me.
I'm on
It's
the
okay
kiss.
to use your words, but it's not okay to
chairs.
everybody's If you're too upset, come and get your answer, and we will help you.
I have a chair. Let's go. Up back, everyone. Danger. Remember, danger. Yeah, that's your chair, but you still sleep.
Benjamin, that was really great that you guys figured that out. Good job.
Okay, let's go.
Good job.
Play isn't about always being in your comfort zone. You know, that's really what we're looking for with the kids, is that they can move through things that are frustrating because they know that it's okay for them to make mistakes, that that's the way you figure things out. This is not about coming to school and saying the answers. It's about coming to a place and learning something you didn't know when you got there.
And this will be the car right here. And
We could just drive through.
Justin is a 4th grader. He's been working mostly on creating this car. So he actually got quite attached to the car, and we kept talking to him about ways to make it even more lifelike.
We need 2 long blocks right here.
His work in blocks has been partly because I could tell the energy was sort of dying down, and so we talked about, well, what else could you do? And he didn't want to add at that point anymore to his car, so we talked about, well, maybe you can build a garage for it. And he said, oh, I could do that.
We had to move it a little closer to each other. I built a tunnel. It's like a mini city for my car. Oh yeah. It's not this side.
Spatial awareness is a huge thing that kids learn. They have to really navigate their way around the buildings. They have to really figure out how to step over the work and around each other in order to get that work done. And you learn a lot by watching them as they move around that work. For the most part, you're using these kind of rectangular blocks, and at some points you're using some other kinds of blocks. So I want you to look around and see what else in the area that you can be using. And one of the things I kept talking to them about was the uses of the different blocks, because they tend to use simply rectangular shapes. And so, I mean, there's a mathematical aspect to that where we're talking about shapes, we're talking about dimensions, we're talking about placement of blocks. Buildings tend to have all sorts of shapes, okay? Like, for example, I look at her house. Do you notice the different kinds of shapes she uses? She uses arches, there are triangles, there are rectangles. So think about some other possibilities for your building. One of the things we've talked to him about is how he carries the blocks in and out of the space. We talk about just organization in general.
So I'm just gonna put this right here.
Or you're not using them, you need to put them away, because how is it going to affect the rest of your work? If one person slips on them, there goes the rest of your building. So it's those small pieces in order to help him to go on to bigger things. This is your house?
Yeah.
And this is?
A tunnel.
A tunnel. Here's my question for you. It has to do with this. Did you take a look at your car and see what, in terms, because we're not going to measure, but there is something that has to be done. Look at your car in relation to the size of your house.
It's bigger.
So what do you guys, how are you guys going to fix that? You're going to make the house a little bit taller? How are you going to make the house taller?
Add some more blocks.
Add some more blocks before you add a roof. This is important. This is why you have the car here, because you're supposed to use that to help you figure out the sizes of your buildings. The floors are going to need to be bigger. So that's where I would start. I'd start, even if you're making a building, which is great, think about how you're going to make these floors bigger and use your car to help you with the measurements, okay?
So we need to put the
So we're gonna do that right now, or do that after we finish this?
We should do it now.
I'm Christine Hahn. I'm a 2nd and 3rd grade teacher at CPE 1. What I don't want them to do is put one piece away. Organize it a little bit and plan how you're gonna clean it up, and take it down in a way so it doesn't totally fall apart and just all come crumbling down, which I think some of them like, but then they have to help each other and try to make like a kind of an assembly line so that it's not like one kid putting everything away and 3 kids just standing there. the main issue I bring up with them is safety. You don't want blocks that can randomly fall on people, and they can be heavy, so that's the main point I emphasize with them. Sarah, that's not safe. If that falls and those all fall on your feet, your toes will not feel so great.
Yeah.
Two, it can take a lot longer than necessary. You know, in the beginning of the year, I just saw how they cleaned up without telling them what to do to see if they would organize it themselves. And some kids got it, and some kids would put one block away. They were like, oh, this is so boring. And it was just like, well, then what's another way you can do it? You know, so just to be a little bit more efficient and to think about it instead of just, you know, aimlessly, mindlessly just putting them back and taking twice as long.
I forgot there was more cylinder thingy majiggies. I'll help you.
They pretty much know what to do. There's some kids that, you know, I need to remind them, take 3 at a time, don't just take 1. You know, take those loose blocks down before they fall. But most of them are experienced enough that they can just say, like, you know, so-and-so, you should probably take that block off before it falls. You know, they usually help each other much more than I help them.
All right, you guys are done?
Yes.
Good job. You guys can go.
Echo me. Have a seat. Let's get ready.
The block area is a place where children come and build. They build the world as they know it and as they imagine it.
A part of the beach right here and a part of the pool right here.
They recreate the world through their experiences. Today in the block area, we have a hotel. We have different kinds of houses.
This is a hotel for kids that are lost. Then they can stay there until their parents come. They're color blocks. I'm using them for the kids. You know what? We're making a desert for the snakes.
We have a snake desert because we've been studying animals, and one of the animals we saw were some snakes.
You like snakes?
Yeah.
How did you find out about snakes?
At the zoo.
We were in the reptile house, and Oliver noticed that there were snakes that lived in the desert, that lived in the jungle, and that lived in the forest. And today he created a space for 3 different kinds of jungle snakes.
Yeah, my favorite snake is King Cobra.
I feel very strongly that we know developmentally that children learn through play, that they learn through experience, that they learn over time, and they learn in relationship and in conversation with each other.
And what are the people doing? They're just waiting for what? The animals to open? Yeah, they're waiting for the animals. They're waiting for the bottom to open.
It's important to provide the space, the time, the materials, and the support that children need to do that. I don't tell them what to build in the block area. I say, the way I tell them when we go ice skating, I say go skate, I say go build.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in your spot.
During our work time meetings and our morning meetings, we talk about if someone went running into the block area and knocked down someone's buildings, if someone's arms were in fact flailing, because in the beginning of the year it does happen. All of that is brought to the group and we talk about it. And I ask them what we can do so that their buildings are safe and protected, because work and its protection is as important as their bodies and their feelings. And so it's something that they talk about and become aware of and mindful of. The math that they learn in blocks is unbelievable, not just in number, but in geometry. At some point, they will put down one block and then a stack of 2 blocks and a stack of 3 blocks. And that child has an understanding of our number system because they've started from 0, 1, 2, 3. And if I ask them, how many blocks do you need next? Then they can tell me more. I know that they know that in our number system, it's 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, and they're building up that way. Their work in blocks lets me know what their questions are, what their interests are, and it's shared among all of the grown-ups and the children that are there, and it becomes a source of curricular work and focus. There are some children that take to blocks the way ducks take to water. It just speaks to them, and they know instinctively almost how to work with the materials, how to use the space. In provisioning so much time, I hope that I allow children who either need more time or more experience with the materials to develop their comfort and confidence with the material in their own time and in their own way. And children do it in lots of different ways. I've had children go into the block area, pick up 2 blocks, and just sit and look at what the other children are doing. But I know the weight of those blocks in their hands is somehow speaking to them in terms of what they're seeing other children do. I've had children go in and want to always be the helper until that day comes for them, where their ideas crystallize, their comfort, whatever it is for them, and they go in and they claim the block area as their own. I haven't had a child that stayed with me for 2 years that didn't find their point of entry in the blocks. The joy of teaching is to see all of the individuals who are there. And yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's exhausting. But when I look at block buildings and I can recognize some of my children by the buildings that they make, I recognize them by the drawings that they make, because I know who they are. It's important to be visible, and visible for who you are, you being your most wonderful, your most constructive self.
More of these. All right. Yeah, I got an idea.
It is open-ended materials, and blocks are highly open-ended that allow children to find their way into them. And I think that's important for children, for them to reinvent the world that they see, but also it gives them the opportunity to invent the world that they imagine.
Althea, look how tall my building is. Whoa.